Good evening, race fans everywhere. Welcome to this edition of the Burnin' Rubber Racing Podcast for Wednesday, February the 12th, 2025. Sterling Price, joined by Hal Estep and Justin Palmer. Gentlemen, good to see you here tonight. At the time of recording this, Daytona 500 qualifying is just about to begin. They have not had any cars on track just yet, but they're pretty much moments away from starting. They've delayed the start of the qualifying session due to college basketball running long in other parts of the country, but qualifying for the 500 about to get underway. And we've got a few things to talk about tonight. For one, I shoveled out my driveway twice today, thanks to some snowstorms that came through earlier, but that's irrelevant to racing and what's going on with the world of motorsports.
I was gonna say, what are we talking about? We're talking about snow. Oh, we're in Daytona. We're talking about Daytona here. 80 degrees, sunny weather down in Florida. Whenever there's not a cup race going on this weekend, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
It is Daytona. We're here, the biggest event of the NASCAR season, one of the biggest of the motorsports world. Qualifying is about to get underway, and a lot of things at stake tonight, Hal, especially for 9 drivers whose fates remain unknown.
Yeah, you're talking about the guys who make today a very fun, important day. The open seats that have no guarantees that they'll be in the race. That is what I'm looking forward to. I'm also looking forward to the Hendricks making everybody else look stupid today because that's what they do on qualifying day. They go out there to be the fastest guys on the track every year, including last year. I know Alex Bowman had a bad one, but the other 3 were in the top 6. So it was an off year and they were still half of the top 6. So I'm ready to see more Hendrick dominance today. My prediction, not a spoiler though.
Well,
Yeah.
you did predict another guy, though, to be on the pole.
I sure did.
If you recall correctly, because we have made some picks for that.
Yeah, I think we can pull up those picks now while we've got the time before we really dive in, because we have, for those who don't follow our Twitter account at Burnin' Rubber RP, these are the picks that we have made for qualifying, really for the session tonight. If you recall, last week we all made our picks for who will win the pole for tonight. I picked Kyle Larson. Hal, you went with Michael McDowell, and Justin went with Todd Gilliland. On the front row, here's something new for tonight in case you haven't tuned in yet. I went with a fellow Hendrick driver, Alex Bowman, to start on the front row, or at least to qualify on the front row alongside Larson. Hal, I see you went with William Byron. And Justin, you're going with a fellow Ford, predicting a Ford front row sweep with Chris Buescher.
I am. Fords have been fast in qualifying. 6 of the last 7 poles have been won by the Ford Brigade. But we have a universal pick for who's going to make the show. All of us actually in order too. So this was not me going around with the order here. We all had Justin Allgaier as our first driver, or to make it in on speed. Our second drivers, however, could not be any more different.
Yeah, we decided to go a little variable. For those who aren't familiar with Daytona 500 qualifying, it is a little complicated, but there are 9 open entries for the 500 this year that are entered to attempt to qualify for the race. As you can see, we've all picked Justin Allgaier as our top open qualifier, meaning that we believe that Justin Allgaier will be the fastest of the open entries. Keep in mind that the top 2 of the fastest 2 open entries in qualifying tonight will lock themselves into the 500. That is a guarantee. So, as you can see, we all picked Justin Allgaier and the Junior Motorsports entry for the top spot for the open entries. For second open qualifier, I'm going with Anthony Alfredo and Beard Motorsports. They tend to be pretty fast on the super speedways. That's what I'm banking on tonight. Hal is going with Martin Truex Jr., the former Cup Series champion, and their Tricon Garage entry. And Justin, you're going with the Trackhouse entry for Elio Castroneves. OEP not necessary is the prediction for this.
Not necessarily at all, and that is something we will have to keep in mind. And we do say a 9 drivers fates are unknown. Well, that's kind of a lie. It's really 8 because Helio Castroneves is locked into the field no matter what. However, he would not receive any points, not receive any purse if he were to fail to qualify tonight or on tomorrow night through the duels if they happen. But it is now game on, and for the 9, they got to go through no matter what. And gentlemen, we are green on the racetrack. First driver out, Justin Haley. We'll be following this along closely, especially when the open drivers get up. They'll be starting to roll in around the 7 through 12 range, where we'll get a good idea of who's going to be in this show. But we've got some news to talk about as well tonight. Hey, it's a little bit of a dual show, and we'll start off outside of Daytona, and we'll shift our gears over to Indianapolis to start off this evening.
Let's start with it, because this is kind of a big news story that really developed over the last couple of days for IndyCar and their administrative executive personnel side of things. There is a leadership change in IndyCar, and I'm not talking about Roger Penske's selling IndyCar. That's not happening. But what is happening, some leadership changes for the sport. Jay Fry, who has served as the president of IndyCar for the last 6 years, is out of his role at IndyCar, and stepping in will be the president of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Doug Boles. Boles will now serve as both the president of IMS. He'll continue in that role. He'll also take on the presidential duties for IndyCar as a sport, as a sanctioning body. He will report to Mark Miles, the CEO of Penske Entertainment, the company that that supervises and presides over the IndyCar series. So Doug Boles will step into this new role. Penske Entertainment CEO Miles had a quote to the Indy Star that Nathan Brown reported on it, saying, quote, "Doug is the ideal choice to lead both IndyCar and IMS as we enter a new era of opportunity and visibility. He's an exceptional leader and motivator who is appreciated by our fans and respected by our owners, drivers, partners, and additional key stakeholders." Now, Nathan Brown, in a series of posts on X/Twitter, mentioned that there seemed to be initial rumblings that a leadership change could be happening. They went back as far as the season finale in Nashville, where there were rumblings around the paddock that there could be something going on. Penske Entertainment insisted that this decision was not made over several months, and that this decision was made fairly quickly. The Indy Star article from Brown also mentions that there was no mention that the parting of ways between Jay Fry and Penske Entertainment, or between IndyCar, was mutual. But they did thank Fry for his service in the role as IndyCar president for the last few years. Keep in mind, before he came to IndyCar, Jay Fry was very involved on the NASCAR side of things, involved in managerial positions for the late MB2 Motorsports outfit, and also overseeing operations at the ill-fated Ginn racing operation for NASCAR all throughout the 2000s. Ended up in IndyCar in the mid-2010s and just kept being promoted through certain roles before ending up as IndyCar president. During his time, during Fry's tenure, IndyCar adopted a universal aero kit for their cars. They also implemented the aero screen, which has been paramount in driver safety over the last few years. They also he oversaw the launch of hybrid technology that IndyCar has taken up over the last less than a year, more like the last few months, to initially mixed to poor results, but they have greatly improved seemingly as the cars have gotten more time on track. So in that regard, you could say his IndyCar tenure was successful. However, this move, I believe, is being made by Penske Entertainment and IndyCar for them to make the next step up. They stabilized things out. Now they're working to get to the next level. Doug Boles, he's been the president at IMS for almost a decade now. And during that time, he's seen Indy 500 attendance numbers increase back to where they were, kind of not quite to where they were in the mid 90s when IndyCar peaked in popularity in America, or American open wheel racing in general, but things have stabilized and have gotten better. IndyCar, they're making this move to put Doug Bowles in as their leader, to make that move, to take that next step in popularity and visibility. IndyCar is already doing a great job with that with Fox Sports and their new broadcasting deal. Fox aired 3 IndyCar commercials for their coverage during the Super Bowl, which that was the best thing about the Super Bowl. We're not going to talk about the game itself. It was embarrassing.
I mean, Kendrick's halftime performance was
okay. Well, Kendrick, yeah, that was the most exciting thing when Kendrick Lamar sang "Not Like Us." It was beautiful, and watching Serena Williams do as well. But that aside, the IndyCar ads have been spectacular between Fox Sports and IndyCar, and that's a good start. Can they carry it through? Can they keep it going? They're certainly banking on that with Doug Bowles taking over as president.
I think this, as you said, so far so good on the marketing front. This marketing campaign from IndyCar has been spectacular. Each commercial, it follows the same formula, yet it's still just kind of a must watch whenever you're usually looking away wanting to do anything else but watch a commercial. So they've hit it on that front, and that's the first step, a really critical step because you're on a new network and you really do want to get people tuning into that first race. The real test, and I don't think these first bunch of races on Fox are going to be the real test. The real test is going to be when they get to the Indy 500 because that's when your huge figure is going to come in for viewers, and you'll see if that marketing really paid off. This is good to start off going to St. Petersburg and starting your season off, but carrying through those first couple of races is historically quality wise, those races have been good. We don't haven't seen them in the hybrid era yet, so we'll see if they carry through in the hybrid era. But the first couple races have usually always been pretty good. Um, but it's that lull when you get to the Indy 500 and then the races after the Indy 500. That's the problem, is retention. Um, I'm gonna want to see if they can do that because there's no longer the excuse of, well, the Indy 500 is always on NBC, but sometimes we're pushed onto Peacock and we're pushed onto other networks. That's not going to be a problem anymore. You are on Fox. There are no more excuses about figures. You got to be getting those viewership numbers up, and that's going to be what his test is going to be. His test, Doug Bull's test, is going to be how well they can maintain and increase viewers on the Fox network, and if they can retain them throughout the season leading up to and after the Indy 500. That's just part of it. We haven't got into what changes will be happening to Carr in his tenure. We're not that far in. We'll figure that out when we get there because there's no real rumblings on that front. The big change we're all waiting for was hybrids, and they're here. His other job's going to be overseeing that the hybrids continue to get better because that start was rough, but they started to get better. Keep that running, and I think that his tenure is going to be just as successful, if not more.
Yeah, well, it's definitely going to be interesting to figure out, what the ratings are going to be after the 500, what the ratings are going to be for the first race of the year at St. Petersburg. That's going to be a big challenge for Fox to see whether or not this advertising campaign has been successful. But in terms of who is coming into this role and being the president of IndyCar, I think Doug Boyles is a good pick. You've seen the improvements that have been made for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway over the last 5-10 years. That has been under his guidance, alongside with Roger Penske, of course. That's something where, you look at that and you see progress. You see what the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is. You go in 2016, it's been different. And if you were to go now, it is a different facility. You also have the IndyCar IMS museum. That's now different as well. That is something that we are very much seeing with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So promoting him to both being president of IMS and IndyCar, I think is a smart move. As far as Frey, adequate job. He's been a very strong proponent of the driver safety. a movement, and we have seen over the past 5 years incidents that could have been absolutely catastrophic been minor scratches and minor bruises. As those are things that you look at. You look at the aero screen and what it's done over the past 5 years. You look at the amount of lives that it's saved, especially when I think back to incidents that have happened at Iowa. That's a big thing right there. Or it's one of those things where, this is the right time to make the change. The revolution is coming now for IndyCar. It's would make sense to do a leadership change at this moment and with a guy who's succeeding. But you look at Jay Frey's tenure, I would say it's been a good one. You even mentioned some of those hybrid issues to start off the year. I really don't think the hybrid issues were related to the hybrid system themselves. It was related to the tracks they were going to. We'll see what happens at Indy with the hybrid system, because that's going to be a whole new wrinkle, and that's your bread and butter, or let's face it. But overall, I thought it was an adequate tenure for him, and wish him nothing but the best moving forward, and wish luck to Doug Boyles as he comes into this role.
Absolutely. I mean, Jay Frey did well because when he came in at a time when IndyCar was going through a lot of change, and there was also quite a bit of stagnation. Not long after Jay Frey took over, just before the 2019 season, it was later that year, in the off season of 2019 going into 2020, where IndyCar went through a severe overhaul in leadership when, the George family and Holman and Company, they sold IndyCar and IMS to Penske.
They did.
And they kept Jay Frey on. So things have definitely gotten, I would say, better. There were some worrying times. I won't say it was perfect, because there were times where it was very turbulent. But at the end of the day, they made it work with what they had. And kudos to Jay Frey for his role. And at the same time, can't wait to see what Doug Boyles does in his role for IndyCar. Quick update on Daytona 500 qualifying. 10 cars have gone out so far, multiple open entries already. Zane Smith is currently the fastest. Jimmy Johnson currently on his lap. Right now, Martin Truex Jr. is the fastest of the open entries in third. Justin Allgaier just logged his time. He is sixth quickest, 3 spots behind. Anthony Alfredo, another open entry, 9th fastest out of the 10 drivers. So Alfredo, we know for a fact now, will have to race his way into the 500 in the duels tomorrow night. Johnson currently on his lap. He'll be going out, and while he is halfway done with his lap, Elio Castroneves will get up to speed to make his qualifying lap.
So Johnson just has clocked in his lap. He jumped up to 5th. And so that would put Justin Allgaier in 3rd and Alfredo in 4th. And remember, technically 3rd and 4th do have a way in if the first place or one of the first place or second place were to win their dual race among their open drivers, the 3rd place driver would get in that situation. And if both of them were to win it, then the 4th place driver would join that as well. So 3rd and 4th is still important in terms of the equation. Also, 3rd place is important in case we get a rain out. 3rd and 4th is important in case of a rain out, which there is rain in the forecast tomorrow night, that we do have to keep in mind. But 3rd and 4th could technically get you in with a good performance on Wednesday night if Johnson and Truex provisionally are the winners of their respective duels. However, your Castroneves is on track right now. He's about to finish his lap, so I'm paying a little bit of time here to see who will absolutely have to race their way into the 500, because 5th does not have that option. 5th through 9th, if that range, will have to race their way into this Daytona 500. And as I look at the timing, Castroneves is 10th, just ahead of Alfredo. Alfredo will have to race his way into the 500, but Castroneves is very likely not going to make it out, depending on the laps of BJ McLeod, JJ Yeley, Corey LaJoie, and Chandler Smith. So those are the 4 drivers remaining. However, a lot of the heavy hitters are now out of the way. So it looks like at the moment, it's going to be Truex and Johnson who are going to race their way into the 500, which is huge for the Toyotas.
Can I just say, Fox, put the interval up. I have not seen how fast. I've not seen an interval in like 10 minutes. I'm mad. I'm just mad about that. I'm like, can I see the seconds ticking, please? Just a sign of where he's at in the pacing. I miss the speed tracker they'd have where it has the little ticker that would go left to right and depending on how fast they're going pace wise. I'm missing that a lot right now.
Maybe the CW can provide that because I mean, they announced their bug today. We didn't have that in our notes, but they have a bottom ticker, which is the first time since I would say the TNT days. Ace TNT
For
nonstop.
TNT's, like TNT's wide open coverage.
Yeah.
That they would have for Daytona, usually for the Daytona July race.
Better than the Fox bug, I'll say that for the Super Bowl.
Oh boy, we don't need to be reminded of that.
Unfortunately, we're going to have that for the next couple of years because Fox is not going to have it for another 4 years.
Hey, you'll have it for your games. I'll continue watching CBS, thankfully.
Unfortunately, yes, but we also do have a little bit more news on the IndyCar side. Some other people did get some promotions as well. Sterling, you want to read those off?
Yeah, I'll take those. So obviously Doug Bowles wasn't the only change that they made for IndyCar administrative roles. They also have largely promoted from within. Mark Sibla, who was the IndyCar chief of staff for Jay Fry for almost a decade, he has now been named the senior vice president of IndyCar competition and operations. Also, Kyle Novak, who has served as the sanctioning body's race director since 2018. He's now the series vice president of officiating and race control, which will tie him more closely to IndyCar's longtime tech director, Kevin Blanche. Alex Dameron, who was previously the vice president of corporate communications for Penske Entertainment. They are now the IndyCar chief marketing officer. And also for Indianapolis Motor Speedway, that track particularly, Lewis Kissinger, who has served in almost 8 years as the event coordinator at IMS, has been promoted to now he is now the track's general manager of operations.
Congrats to all of them on their promotion and best of luck in their new role.
Absolutely. Not much else to say regarding that. Now, what else is there to talk about? Because I'm kind of got my hands full trying to see what else there is here. Sticking with open wheel motorsports, the FIA could implement we talked about the FIA last month and how they have their new policy, which is basically their version of actions detrimental to open wheel racing or Formula One, which severely restricts how a driver can express themselves or this, that, and the other thing. Well, the FIA, it was announced via Last Word on Sports. They reported that the FIA could implement a quote-unquote shutdown of team radio messages to combat driver profanity.
You know what? I think that's a whole bunch. They got to me. Sorry, they muted my mic.
I'll put it in PG terms. Screw off with that.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about that. We had this debate weeks ago where he said, guess what? And profanity is what helped you get it elevated. It's why Formula One got so popular to begin with, was because of people like Steiner, people like Alonso, people like Hamilton, Verstappen. People are not afraid to give their opinions and don't have really a filter in terms of their vocabulary in front of the camera. Yeah. You think you could stop them when they're in the heat of the moment going 230 miles an hour or 300 kilometers an hour? I'm sorry. Hey, the last thing on my mind, if you're a driver, is trying to, cut down on the profanity, trying to put a filter in while you're thinking about driving a race car that takes reaction times in the thousands of seconds, not the hundredths, not the tenths, the thousands of seconds. Yeah, they're not going to really have a filter on that. And I would almost think this would be a safety issue, because if a guy's can't communicate with his team when he has a puncture or something, or feels something wrong with the car, and he goes, I mean, we into the barriers, who's that on at that point where he can't communicate with the team?
This is the stupidest, dumbest, ridiculous controversy they've just manufactured for themselves, because this was not actually a problem, and then they just made it a problem. I have said it enough number of times now where the problem lies, and again, this sport will be better off when he is not in charge of the sport. So take that for what it is, because we're just scared of guys cursing now. We're scared of guys swearing now. We're scared of it. That's what it really is. We're so terrified we're going to threaten them over it and take their money and take their points and suspend them over words, swear words. That's where we're at.
It's all a bunch of words.
I once heard Matt Ryan scream at his receiver to get set on Monday Night Football, and let me tell you,
I've heard a lot of things over my time. Oh my God. Just imagine if they had someone like Kurt Busch in the late 2000s into the 2010s.
Kurt Busch, Tony Stewart,
Kyle
Jr.
Oh yeah, just the Busch brothers in general. There's a tweet I have saved somewhere in my phone. I forget who tweeted it, but it's just a compilation of, like, it's made out to be a quote unquote inspiring message, but really it's just quotes from Kyle Busch over the radio woven together to form like something you would see on an inspiring cat poster.
Why, like, general question, like, why do you think NASCAR Radioactive is the most popular weekly segment when NASCAR Race Hub was still going on around? And better question, why is it the only segment and has survived since NASCAR Race Hub has shut down?
Exactly. It's that popular. It's because fans love hearing the drivers and the crew chiefs and other team members just go off.
It's NASCAR's Real Housewives.
Every now and then, I still get Chad Canals from the 2011 Coke 600 in my head at random times of the day, or it's usually when something is really annoying me. But
I think of Martin Truex Jr. at that one Richmond race. It's where he's like, "You're all fired, every
last one of you."
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
A paraphrase there, but
sometimes I get also to paraphrase Jimmy Johnson saying, "Why is the earth round? I'm loose."
I mean, we could go off. Clint Boyer was a notorious radioactive sweetheart. Or Joey Logano's was fun, even when his mic is not on.
Oh yeah, Pocono from a couple years ago. That comes to mind right away. You also have, there's a lot. There's a lot you can dive into. And if you limit that, you're only going to take away the personality of the drivers, and you're only going to make things worse for, you'll find them for the most ridiculous reasons. This already is a ridiculous policy that the FIA is trying to push through. It just doesn't make sense to me. It restricts what the drivers are able to do and how they're able to express themselves or how they're feeling about the car. It's just, I don't like it. It to me is just completely pointless.
And just for an update on Daytona, by the way, BJ McLeod will have to race his way in. He is second to last in terms of the times shown thus far. So Truex is looking good with Yaley, LaJoie, and Smith left to go. But really, I mean, what's the most popular quote to come out of the Rush movie?
Rush.
They say it.
It's a Ferrari. You have I'm being around the bush with the quote here, but
I think I know what it is. Yeah, I'm also not going to say it. The quote, the other quote that stuck out to me wasn't so much about a Ferrari. it's like Daniel Bruhl, who plays Nicky Lauda in that Rush movie, uh, describing how he was driving. It's also not safe for air, so I'm not gonna say that. But
there's a lot of things from that movie
that are not safe for air. Although I will say, Rush, terrific movie, highly recommend watching. Just if you've got any like teenagers, make sure they watch with a guardian or parent. Make sure they have a responsible adult with them. It's rated R, just so you know.
It's rated R for a good reason too.
Yeah, pretty much.
But again, we've said our piece on this. It's a stupid rule, and it's a clash of ideology. Like that's what it boils down to. It's a clash of ideology, and I don't think Formula One is going in that direction. I don't think society as a whole is going in that direction, and profanity used to be a lot more of a severe topic. Now it gets thrown around a lot more.
Yeah, once again, you'll catch a hot mic during a football game and hear some of the funniest things you'll ever hear, let me tell you. And it's not going to it shouldn't change, first of all. And it's throwing his weight around, is what it really is. It's how much can I get away with? And it's also, as you said, taking personality away from the drivers. And I think there's a little more behind that. And I've seen it in a couple different sports now. Let's put it this way. UFC does not have a problem with guys not showing personality. Unfortunately, they show too much. But the calling card is they don't want you to be bigger than the sport. They don't want people to tune in to watch you. They want people to tune in to watch the sport. That's why they don't want you to have a personality in Formula One, is because when you leave, so do a lot of your fans, is their line of thinking. Or you could just let the next guy with a personality take his spot. I don't know. That's a little too much thinking to go on in the heads of the top chair in Formula One right now.
And again, we talk about personality all the time. Like, we had literally today media day, right? We had media day at Daytona after practice. It's Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi sat down with 40 drivers. And all 40 drivers had at least something memorable come out of that interview. These guys have personality. They just haven't had the incentive to go out there and show that personality. And, do you need it for a race like Mexico City? Not really. It's kind of a spectacle in itself to have NASCAR there. But for some of these other races, and trying to get eyes on TV, yeah, that's a big issue that you're going to have right there.
Yeah. Lot to consider there with the FIA.
A little bit. And one more Daytona update before we get into shifting gears onto the NASCAR side. Corey LaJoie is 12th fastest. He is now the 4th fastest of the open drivers. There's JJ Yaley, BJ McLeod did not set good times at all. They're near the bottom, which means Martin Truex Jr., gentlemen, is locked into the Daytona 500. Martin Truex Jr. is in. And the final driver, Chandler Smith, it will be between Jimmy Johnson, 7-time champion, versus Chandler Smith for the final spot. Chandler Smith is due up in 5 drivers. So Truex is in, Johnson in the provisional spot, Allgaier in 3rd. So he will at least have a path on speed tomorrow, depending on no matter what Chandler Smith is. But you'd rather be in that 3rd spot than you would be in the 4th spot for sure.
Yeah, and keep them. And for those who are listening or watching and don't know what we're talking about, those are regarding open entries. Martin Truex Jr. is 5th fastest overall right now. They're about halfway through qualifying for the 500. 20 cars have gone. I believe Todd Gilliland is about to go out and settle up if he hasn't already.
He has, and that moves them to 4th. So P4 for Todd Gilliland, and he beats. I'm going to get a couple points more than Hal tonight by 4 thousandths of a second, but neither of us are getting the full 10 tonight. So, Sterling, you're the only hope up to get the 10.
Now, hold on 1 second. Don't we have another round of the top 10 that go out?
There will be a second round of the top 10 of qualifying. For right now, Ryan Preece is the fastest driver right now with a time of 49.35. That is about a tenth better than Austin Dillon, who's actually second fastest right now.
Yeah,
Zane Smith and Todd Gilliland are third and fourth. So two front row cars inside the top five for the moment, with Michael McDowell in fifth. So waiting, let's see. AJ Allmendinger is next to go up, followed by Ty Dillon, Riley Herbst, and then Chandler Smith is the last open entry to go out.
And the last of the first group of drivers, because of the random draw, it was the top 20 drivers in the second group, the bottom 25 in owners points in the first group, which means Josh Berry will get the final run of the night before the top 10 go around. But Allgaier, for the record, has also fallen outside of that top 10. So again, no chance for him to get up there for a second run. But Martin Truex Jr. is locked into the Daytona 500 with Chandler Smith to go. Again, one of the few races of the year where we actually have to worry about qualifying, but that might be the case as well for Mexico City.
It could be. Yeah. Let's have a look actually at the Mexico City track layout, which I've managed to put here in the agenda. So this is the layout that NASCAR will use when they go to Mexico. Now, it is fairly similar to the F1 track that this is the same facility that F1 uses for their race in Mexico City. You may notice the only real difference is down here. Usually Formula One has another like left-hander, right-hander, and then this little section here that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But this actually looks pretty similar to the layout that NASCAR used when they had the Busch Series racing here in the mid-2000s. They had the same kind of bend over here at the end of this long straightaway. Maybe a few more S's. The only big difference that I can point out is when the Busch/Xfinity Series used to race here, they had this long sweeping right-hand corner as the last corner. Now they still have the stadium section, which they're keeping here for Xfinity and Cup when they race here in Mexico City.
Yeah, I thought the stadium section was not going to be incorporated into the design. I thought that was going to be a little too tight, but apparently NASCAR think that's good. And I'm all for it. I really like the stadium section. It's probably my favorite section. One of my favorite features of pretty much any track on the planet. And one of the high price type A facilities, Mexico City, always a big draw. I think the track layout is good on paper, but we have said time and time again, got to see it in action.
Yeah, I agree with that. Good on paper. I'm looking forward to this race. I'm warming up more and more. I don't think I was really against it to begin with, but now it's becoming a kind of the spectacle of the season for me. As we run down through the season, I want to see, first of all, the drama hound in me wants to see how in the world they're all going to get there without any problems. That's going to be the first step. That week leading up is what I'm really looking forward to. The race itself, I am hoping for a very successful race. Again, this car and road courses has been very, very mixed bag. We saw some, again, when they've taken chances and with the Chicago street course, it's worked out quality wise that first year and second year. It's been a fine race. It's just it hasn't reached its full potential because of everything going on at the time, weather-wise. Um, but this time, I'm really, really hoping that we can see Mexico City put on a show. Stadium section, as you guys said, I think everyone's looking forward to that first lap going through it. And I can't wait to see it in action. We've seen it before, but that was a long time ago, and it wasn't the Cup Series. This is going to be fun. And again, I hope that they can get there and get back and have no issues because that's my biggest fear for all the teams.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's going to be interesting to see how many teams enter this race. I feel like we're going to see hopefully an uptick of entries, kind of what we've seen with the Chicago street course. Although I do think the sheer logistics of travel and getting down to Mexico City could have an impact on who actually makes the trip down there.
But you would expect a team like NBM to maybe try it, or maybe a Tricon entry, or I have to imagine Garage. In 90, Project number 91 is going to be down there. I think It's a question of not if, it's who for Project number 91. So you're going to have guys who are going to be interested in this race. I think the bigger concern on the logistics side of things is the Xfinity side. Because again, the Xfinity side will have a week where they are having to do an up and down. You're going from, I forget if it's Pocono or Michigan, but you're going from one of the northernest parts of the country all the way down to Mexico City, which is smack dab in the middle of Mexico. That's not an easy logistical experience for any of these Xfinity teams. And I have to imagine this is going to be nerve wracking for those teams, because I have to imagine they're going to have to load up a primary car for Michigan and a primary car for or Mexico City, and they gotta hope that they make it down there, or vice versa. It might be the Pocono race. I gotta double check at the schedule for the Xfinity Series, but I know they have one of those weeks off in order to help prepare for this race.
Right.
I've got to assume that one team, as you said, like Project 91 or Tricon, basically playing another JGR car or whatever they want to do. One of them has to be thinking to themselves, what can I do to really make some buzz for this race and our team? Sergio Perez has nothing going on. Your racing royalty down in Mexico, Checo Perez, has nothing going on right now. If you're not kicking the tires on at least calling him up and seeing his interest, I think you might be wasting your time even getting a Project 91 car down there.
So it will. So I do have to correct myself. It is Autodrome Hermanos and then Pocono. So the Xfinity Series will have a week down to get there. Coming back will be a bit more of a problem, but then again, you might actually be able to stop at the shop in North Carolina, because you do have to make that trek unless you're going diagonal, which is the optimal route. But a lot of these teams will have to stop between there. So NASCAR actually was a little smart with it to allow these teams to get back to the Charlotte area in time, as Chandler Smith is on his lap right now.
I was just going to point that out. Smith currently on his lap. He's the he's the last of the open entries to go out as we're recording. Again, Martin Truex Jr. He is the fastest open entry, unless Chandler Smith knocks him off. But Truex has guaranteed his spot in the field. He's currently 8th fastest overall. Jimmy Johnson is 2nd fastest of the open entries, 11th overall. We'll see where Chandler Smith locks in.
Not even close.
66th entry, not close at all. It's going to be Jimmy Johnson, who will be the 2nd open entry locked into the field. So that's that. Jimmy Johnson, the 7-time champion. Actually, we have 2 former Cup Series champions, Truex and Johnson, who have guaranteed their spot in the 67th running of the Daytona 500.
So that all that talk about the provisional and the champions not locking themselves in, there's a reason why they're champions. We questioned Toyota speed going into speed weeks. Guess what, gentlemen? Toyota's got some numbers this year, or they now have 3 2311 cars, 4 Joe Gibbs racing cars. There's 3 Legacy Motor Club cars and a Tricon garage car locked into the Daytona 500. The very worst these guys can start is 39th and 40th, but it doesn't matter. Johnson, Truex, both locked into a Daytona 500. Hal, your reaction as I get at the lineup for the duels and who's going to be in what duel tomorrow night?
I'll tell you what, there was a legitimate gripe from Martin Truex Jr. about Jimmy Johnson not having the provisional, because if you're going to give it to Helio Castroneves, he's a very accomplished driver, I understand, but Jimmy Johnson is literally the only guy who can walk around going, I'm more accomplished in my series than he is in his series. And that was where I kind of sat there and went, I like that Martin Truex Jr. isn't trying to push himself into provisional. He's trying to push Jimmy Johnson into it, because he knows that's the guy you really have the argument for. We don't have to talk about it now because they've locked themselves in, but it was a legitimate gripe. And now we don't have to worry about a champion being kicked out because of the provisional or anything like that. I'm not surprised by Martin Truex Jr. I had a feeling that it was going to be prepared maybe by Joe Gibbs Racing or helped by Joe Gibbs Racing. Either that or 2311. Either way, top flight team to help you out. Jimmy Johnson is the one that surprises me, and
Yeah.
it's because we have seen the Legacy Motor Club team struggle so much over the last few years. I didn't know if they had the speed to do it. I thought he was gonna have to race his way in.
Truthfully, I'll say this now because I'm happy to be disproven on this. I had a hot take prediction that if Jimmy did not qualify on speed tonight, that he was not going to make the 500.
Yeah. That was a very realistic fear for my as well. I did not think that Johnson was going to make. I didn't think Johnson was going to make it. Period. I thought Truex was going to be able to race his way in, but Johnson missing it, not a shock at all. And as we look at the lineup here now, it will be Martin Truex Jr. as the top open driver. So remember, the way this is going to work is the open drivers are going to be divided up into the duels equally. So the first duel will have 5 drivers. The second duel will have 4 of the open drivers. So in duel number 1, it will be Martin Truex Jr., Justin Allgaier in the 3rd spot. That is the best spot to have if you're not locked in. Helio Castroneves, Chandler Smith, and J.J. Yaley. That will be in number 1. And number 2 will be Jimmy Johnson, Corey LaJoie, Anthony Alfredo, and B.J. McLeod. There is a lot of racers in that second duel, Hal. And remember, Helio Castroneves is locked into the field. However, I think more than likely he's going to be taking that provisional. So it is fair game between Justin Allgaier and Chandler Smith for that final spot.
I am gonna just not safely say, Justin Allgaier has to be your favorite to make it. He has to be the favorite. That doesn't mean he's gonna do it because again, the duels can be a mini Daytona, and you could have a lot of things go wrong for a guy. Um, I the provisional adds in that extra bit of intrigue, and I root for Elio not to be the 4th spot because of it. I want 41 drivers in the Daytona 500. Selfishly, I mean, his team would probably hate that. They'd probably be like, "This kind of sucks a little bit," but I need it. I need 41 drivers. I need Elio to unfortunately not do well in the duels because I also don't want 5 guys going home. I want to see 4 is okay because at least the majority made it, but 5 is kind of like, ugh. That's a tough scene. We had a chance at 41 this year.
You hate the days of 60. You hate the days back in 2007, 2008 when you had 60 cars showing up.
Oh, no, see, that's different because they all knew they were going home. Some of them just showed up to just drive some laps around Daytona and say they did it, I feel like.
Yeah. So again, to try and clarify as best for any viewers watching, it's going to depend, like how many open entries get into the 500 will depend on the duel finishes and the results from the duel races tomorrow night. Regarding the open entries, they'll take the best finisher from each duel race. Then they'll look at the qualifying speeds from tonight that's going on right now. And then they'll take the fastest 2 qualifiers from tonight that did not make it in through the duels, which is why for Truex and Jimmy Johnson, they now have the fallback of, hey, in case they're not the top finishers from their duel races, they can fall back on their qualifying results from tonight because they're the top 2. So that's why, that's why they're guaranteed entry into the 500 for sure. And then the duel races will help determine everything else. If Helio Castroneves is the top finishing open entry in his duel, he will lock himself into the 500. Just trying to see some other things. Just looking at the results right now, or where everybody is timed out. Castroneves is the 5th fastest of the open entries, so he will have to. The thing is, he'll get into the 500 one way or another, whether it's using that OEP or he races his way in.
Right. So, he's got to make it in he's got to make it in now, basically through the duels. That's his way in. The guys who are absolutely have to race their way in: Anthony Alfredo, Chandler Smith, BJ McLeod, and JJ Yaley. All of them are capable, talented drivers who can race their way in. However, I do look at that speed of JJ Yaley, 51.05. He was about half second slower than everybody else, save for Cody Ware, who was absolutely that thing was a tractor, or to put it lightly. He was about a second off everybody. But the thing is Justin Allgaier, he's in a good spot. So if Truex or Johnson were to race their way into the field, they would get and be the winners of their respective duels. Justin Allgaier would be in the Daytona 500. He would, and remember, those who have to rely on their speed tonight, that is the 39th and the 40th spot on the grid. Helio would start 41st if he were to miss the Daytona 500 qualifying in the normal way. A lot of intrigue, and we'll talk about our picks later. We've got a lot to digest with it, but to reiterate, Truex and Johnson are in the Daytona 500. The two champions, and who are semi-retired, or for the both of them, they are in. And Duel 1 will be Martin Truex Jr., Justin Allgaier, Helio Castroneves, Chandler Smith, JJ Yeley. And Duel 2 will be Jimmy Johnson, Corey LaJoie, Anthony Alfredo, and BJ McLeod. So that will be the lineup for tomorrow night or tonight, depending on when you're listening to this. You might be listening into a VOD weeks from now, and that might not be a mute point. But that is the lineup as of this time, which is 8 o'clock Central on Wednesday, February 12th. How?
Yeah, I always love the duels because of the same reasons I love qualifying for the 500, and this year's not going to be an exception. It's actually the one race where I don't root for Team Chaos because I'm kind of like, can we let these guys actually race their way in instead of wrecking them out of the 500? That's kind of the most heartbreaking way to actually leave the 500 weekend without making the race.
Yeah. I mean, I do have some thoughts about the 500, but I might save them for another time because there are some more stories to get into. Real quick, my pick for the poll, Kyle Larson, 5th fastest. So currently the fastest of our poll predictions. Into the top 5 he goes.
Mine will more likely fall the top 10, so you might get the 5. I'm not going to get a chance of redemption, I don't think.
Yep. Ryan Preece still the fastest. Ty Dillon, the 2nd fastest.
Yeah, what's going on here?
Number
Dillon brothers. 2 and 3.
Dillon brothers.
Wait, the calling magic is back?
I don't know what to say. I do have a thought, but I'm going to hold it for now.
It's impressive. I'll give it that.
Yeah. So there is some other news. We've been talking quite a bit about qualifying. There are some more news to get to. One thing that got brought up by Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal, the France family, the family that's owned NASCAR ever since its incorporation, its start in 1949. They may actually sell an equity stake of NASCAR ownership in the future. If they do, it would be the first time in its history that a piece of the NASCAR sanctioning body ownership would be sold. So, I mean, interesting development there. I definitely am not going to say directly what I think is pardon me while I hold on to my foil hat here.
Here we go.
It's definitely not like this packet that I'm holding in my hand may or may not have something to do with this recent reporting from Adam Stern, but it's a possibility. The thoughts are really deep under here.
What's the old saying with about generations? The first one builds it, the second one grows it, and then the third one either destroys it or they're looking to sell it. That's the old adage. And this is the 3rd generation, and so it's possible. I definitely think the France family, they're not going to sell it all the way. They're not going to sell it completely. I don't think, but it's definitely something to keep in mind, I don't think it has anything to do with the lawsuit. I think if they could bring in some equity stake and take a little pressure off themselves in doing so, that's great for them. But, this is a family business that has made billions of dollars over the years. So if this is time to cash out, good on the France family, Hal.
I know about one of those that got bought recently, and I'll tell you what, the quality's gone up considerably in that one. So I'm just saying this is not necessarily a bad thing. Um, I don't think anyone's really looking at it as a bad thing yet until we figure out what new ideas would come in. But someone buying an equity share would also mean we have new ideas. We have a new voice in the room. And I think that should be welcome. I just don't know if whenever the time comes that someone does buy that equity share, I just got a feeling I'm not going to like their ideas when they show up is the real problem. Um,
Yeah.
this is, but the problem is that's not exclusive to new people in the room. I haven't liked the France family's ideas in the past too, so it's kind of like just
And,
another name to add to the blame for me.
and I want to point out that, you know, selling equity stakes and ownership isn't something that's entirely new. We've seen it with a few NASCAR teams.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, Joe Gibbs Racing, they got involved with Josh Harris's group. Josh Harris, the owner of the Washington Commanders. Legacy Motor Club, something that we didn't really put down in a agenda here, but we mentioned Jimmy Johnson is now the majority owner there at Legacy Motor Club, but he has also gotten another hedge fund group, Nighthead Capital Management, involved with ownership in Legacy Motor Club in a minority ownership stake. There's also, when you think about it, Spire Sports and Entertainment and their Spire Motorsports team of their hedge fund. So you get these wealthy groups involved with ownership. I think technically we can classify RFK as another example of that with their Fenway Sports Group involvement. So, you know, it's been done before. I would be interested to see if NASCAR does something like that with the ownership of the sport. That would be taking it to a whole new level. But again, I mentioned before, the packet that I brought up in my hand a few minutes ago, you know, the ongoing lawsuit. What if this move that if they decide to sell off a chunk of the sport, regardless of what percentage it is, what if that's a move that is being made to possibly bring in a potential settlement to the lawsuit they have going on between themselves and 2311 and Front Row Motorsports?
Well, there is some updates on that at lawsuit. NASCAR had to, for the appeal process, they are required to give a brief distinction to the court. They did do that. I'm not going to read the statement. You can find that on Adam Stern or Bob Pockrass's Twitter. It's kind of the same legal jargon. We know what their position has been over the last several months that we've been following this. We really don't need to get into it tonight. But basically, they're just saying that and we gave them a better deal. We're offering up this and this is hurting the legitimacy of the 2025 season. And by having teams that didn't sign the charter agreement be guaranteed into these races. Well, guess what? It really doesn't matter unless it's Mexico City. Because these teams are going to be locked in no matter what, but it's more of an equity share or at that point.
I hate to put it this way, but if we're talking about the legitimacy of the season, and this is the problem with it, listen, the season hasn't started yet. You got a lot of calls to make that'll call into question the legitimacy of the 2025 season. I'm sure there will be more than a few. So this is not going to be the issue. It's a funny argument because it just comes off as you denied my injunction. I am now a crying baby in the courtroom telling you why this is a bad thing. We're past the whole legitimacy of this season argument. It seems like a moot point now.
Well, maybe a podcast would help repair some of that legitimacy. Hey, something, and I don't know. Maybe having a podcast with NASCAR officials talking about some of their decision making and what goes in behind the scenes in making said decisions. That would be an interesting podcast.
Well,
I'd
that's what
listen
we're
to that.
getting.
Oh, are we?
Transparency?
Evidently. I mean,
I have no idea.
there's the new podcast that's being formed. It's called Hauler Talk. It'll be a show dedicated to talking about NASCAR official decisions and going behind the scenes of the NASCAR Tower. Now, I must admit, this seems like a really cool concept.
It is.
Mike Ford, who works behind the scenes with NASCAR administrative and communications purposes, he'll be hosting this along with Amanda Ellis, who works in NASCAR's communications PR department. As someone who has, listened in on press conferences hosted by Amanda, she's fantastic at what she does. Also, Nate Ryan with NBC Sports. I believe he still works with NBC. Nate Ryan.
I believe so.
He works now mostly with their IndyCar and sports car coverage, but Nate Ryan, been around the sport a long time. But those three will be hosting this podcast on a weekly basis is what they'll be doing. And also from that podcast, or from Mike Ford, he mentioned that NASCAR is considering rotating the site of the championship weekend for NASCAR. Good.
So
I like that idea.
So that came from their first guest on the podcast, which was one of the Steve Phelps. So that's pretty good word of mouth that they're considering it. And it's been rumored for a long time. We all know it. And, consider changing up the championship site. I'm for it. That is one way to solve it. But I think it overlooks the bigger issue of one driver dominating a track versus a larger sample size. And that gets into the whole playoff debate. But rotating the championship around, yeah, makes sense. I would say sports do it. And the Super Bowl does it, and All-Star games do it. That makes sense. It works for them. So I would expect the NASCAR probably to follow suit in that, and would make sense.
And I'm sure there's some contingents of Phoenix that are not too thrilled about this idea, considering how much they spend on amenities. I thought you had
something that you were going to add in there, but yeah, it's something I'm looking forward to. Definitely something to really going to be interesting to watch. That's for sure.
Yep. And
let's see what else there is to mention.
Real quick, Sterling, congratulations. You have won the 5 points tonight from us, because Ty Gillen has officially been knocked out of the top 10. He will not get another run tonight. He will have to improve his spot through the duel. And with that, you will get and with those 5 points, also first pick for the races coming up of the Thursday through Saturday slate. That is now yours to pick first from.
Okay, Justin, whatever you were just saying, I may need a repeat of that. I think my connection crapped out for a few seconds.
Ty Gillen's outside the top 10, so he won't be able to go. So you get the 5 points that come with it, as well as first pick for the duels, the trucks, and the Xfinity. However, Hal has the first pick for the Daytona 500. You and I will be battling for second, and for that with the rest of the weekend picks.
Makes sense. All right, so that's that. Right now, again, Ryan Preece still the fastest driver out there. Austin Cindric goes second fastest in another Ford, just a 14 1,000ths of a second behind Preece. So the Ford's looking awfully strong so far. We still have some of the heavy hitters, Joey Logano, Josh Berry left to go.
6 drivers left. It's the final 6. So Brian Preece, Austin Cindric, Ty Dillon, both Dillon brothers, they will get another chance at it for the 500 pole. But Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, and Joey Logano, Ty Gibbs, Chase Briscoe, and Josh Berry are the remaining 6 drivers left to go. Again, Preece, Cindric, and the Dillons, they will be having a second lap out here at Daytona to go for the 500 pole and the front row. So safe to say our picks did not do well tonight.
Yeah.
Considering where they are, but haven't practiced. It kind of helps out with that.
Absolutely. It'll for sure. So while qualifying is still going on, let's see. We went through the hauler talk. We went through the FIA, the France family possibly selling. There's also some, believe it or not, some driver and personnel news to announce the week of the opening race for NASCAR in the top 3 series this weekend. The first one is really unfortunate for a driver who was looking to compete for Rookie of the Year this season in trucks. Christian Rose was previously announced that it was announced in the offseason that he would drive for Nice Motorsports in their 44 truck full time this season. However, that will no longer be the case. Monday, Nice Motorsports announced that due to unforeseen sponsorship changes, that Christian Rose will not be racing in the 44 truck this season. Rose has stepped out of the truck. Bailey Curry, who drove the 41 truck for Nice this past season, or last season for Nice, will step into the 44. It's unclear how many races that Bailey Curry will run in the 44. However, he is stepping into that truck on what Nice Motorsports called an interim basis. So Curry, he was for Bailey Curry, he was initially going to be just part-time in the 41 entry for Nice, along with multiple other drivers running races in that truck. But now Curry will step into the 44 for an undetermined number of races. He will race at Daytona this weekend. We know that much. But, you know, this really hurts for Christian Rose. I know this was an opportunity he was really looking forward to. I don't know how good he would have been in that 44 truck, but it's a shame that he doesn't even get the chance to show what he could do, it looks like, because sponsorship has dried up seemingly just before the season was supposed to start.
I'd hope for his sake that he would get the chance to have some select races down the line for Nice Motorsports. If it dried up completely, that's just incredibly unfortunate. We talk about how money runs everything in a sport, and this is the unfortunate reality that if it dries up, you just lose your chance. You lose it completely unless you got a really, really nice friend who runs the team. That's not how that works for anybody. There are no friends that run another team for you to drive their car. You got to have sponsorship, and unfortunately, when everything falls through, there's nothing that they can do. They need the money.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing is the money. It does matter in that situation. The money does talk. And unfortunately, in this case, it ran dry, plain and simple. Ran dry. The money's not there, and unfortunately, that's that. That's the way the sport runs. That's the way the sport operates, and unfortunately, this is going to be an opportunity cut short. We've seen this before. Not uncommon for Nice alum to have this issue. Ross Chastain, most notable when DC Solar went up in flames. But it's an unfortunate situation, but that's the reality that's going to be facing in Christian Rhodes this year, as we've got now 2 drivers left remaining on track for this first session.
Yep. So also going on, while we have Christian Rose not being able to race for Nice Motorsports due to sponsorship issues, staying in the truck series, we do have another team, a new team that is being formed, a unique operation, courtesy of Akinori Ogata, a Japanese race car driver who has run sporadically in the Xfinity and truck series for the last few years. Ogata has formed Akinori Performance. They will field the number 63 Toyota Tundra on a part-time basis. Ogata will race a few events along with fellow Japanese driver Kenko Mira. Mira will attempt the road course races that Akinori Performance runs, or will at least attempt in the truck series. It's likely assumed that Ogata will attempt the ovals for his own team.
And gentlemen, for the first time in quite some time, we have a new leader on top of the board. Chase Briscoe, 49.218. Scorcher of a lap, 10th of quicker than the rest of the field. Oh, Chase Briscoe, provisional pole pending Josh Berry. Everybody, I mean, the guy on the bubble now is Zane Smith, as he is the final driver, or he is in the 10th spot with Josh Berry left to go. But Chase Briscoe with a scorcher of a lap. Good grief, that is a fast one.
I'm noticing, looking at the top 10 we got here, there's no real, I would say, dominance. Ford looks the best in terms of numbers, but we got a Toyota on top right now, and our best Chevy is, yeah, you guessed it, Ty Dillon. That's what everybody's guess was at the start of the day.
Just like everybody they thought, just like the simulations.
Sterling, you were muted.
I will say Toyota definitely looks like they've brought their A game for this one.
Yeah.
They look a lot better than what they have in years past.
Well, what we said in the past about the Toyotas, they don't do well in qualifying on Wednesday, and they don't do well at Phoenix.
Right.
It looks like they might have bucked one of those trends this year. Chase Briscoe with a scorcher of a lap, and at the line, Josh Berry is gonna fall. He did get in. He did get in. So Josh Berry will run 6th fastest.
Okay, so, another one I didn't expect.
Okay, it's a Ford. You expect that. So the 10 that are moving on onto the second round: Chase Briscoe, Ryan Preece, Austin Cindric, Joey Logano, Ty Dillon, Josh Berry, Austin Dillon, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, and the last driver who will have a chance and to qualify for the 500 pole, Kyle Larson, which means Zane Smith will start, or I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he will start.
That would be P6
in duel number 1.
Yep.
Kyle Larson's the only Hendrick with a chance to get the pole, which means, well, I'm just surprised about that. Let's just put it that way.
I mean, we did see Fords dominating qualifying last year with Michael McDowell on the outside of the front row and Joey Logano with his webbed glove. So
yeah, that was there.
Yes, it was. So
check
anyway,
Ty Dillon's gloves for me real quick, because I'm just really confused right now.
Check both the Dillon brothers at this point. That's all I'm gonna say. So let's see what else is there. There is one more thing I meant to bring up. On the Xfinity Series, Jeffrey Earnhardt is back. He's going to be running a part-time schedule for Sam Hunt Racing in the number 24 Toyota. Earnhardt's first race is scheduled to be at Talladega, but he will have Forever Lawn sponsoring that entry. Good to see Jeffrey Earnhardt back. I think he's been part-time, running a few races here and there, just whenever possible when the opportunity presents itself. But Earnhardt will be driving for Sam Hunt Racing in the 24. That 24 does not, I don't think it's going to be a full-time entry. They obviously have Dean Thompson in the 26 who will run the full season. Ryan Truex is scheduled to run the 24 at Daytona this weekend. And then you've got the 24 and some other races now with Jeffrey Earnhardt behind the wheel.
Yeah. That'll be a very fun little group right there.
For sure. So now we've got the second round, the last round of Daytona 500 qualifying. The top 10 drivers from the first round will make another lap to see who gets the pole, who will start on the front row for the 67th running of the Daytona 500 this weekend in Florida. In the meantime, we have some picks to make, gentlemen.
Ooh.
We've got picks that we're going to make for the 2 dual races tomorrow night. Actually, we might save those for last because the lineup is going to be determined for those dual races depending on this qualifying race or the qualifying for this upcoming round. So we might just start with the Truck Series and Xfinity Series races that will be happening Friday and Saturday, respectively.
And we might as well take a look at the entry list because there are going to be cars going home in those races as well.
Absolutely. Now, if I can just pull up the weekend schedules with everything. Or I'm clicking on the wrong link. Just perfect. So anyway, the Truck Series race is Friday night. The Fresh from Florida 250 at Daytona International Speedway. I'll go ahead and pull up the entry list for this race. There are 38 trucks entered for this event. Some notables to point out, and there's quite a few. In fact, I'll just go ahead and share the screen so that you can see these changes. William Sawalich will be in the Tricon number 1 for this weekend. That one is going to have multiple drivers in that truck throughout the year. Sawalich is in the one. The 02 for Young's Motorsports is to be announced, although I would assume that Nathan Bird is going to be driving that. Bird is going to run most of the season in the 02. The number 2 is no longer a Rev racing truck. That is Josh Rayom, who will drive the 2. The number 2 is now a part of the Rayom Brothers Racing stable. They'll have 3 trucks full-time this season. Hedinger Racing will attempt this race with Mason Maggio. Number 5 for Tricon this season, it's Tony Breidinger in the number 5. She'll compete for Rookie of the Year. Norm Benning in the 6 for his own team. The 07 is a new entry for Spire Motorsports, which will run the full season. Both the 07 and the 7 will be all-star trucks for Spire this year. Michael McDowell will drive the 07, Justin Haley in the 7 this weekend for Daytona. Further down the list we go. In the 17 for Tricon is Gio Ruggiero, also competing for Rookie of the Year. He replaces Taylor Gray in that truck. Gray, of course, goes to the Xfinity Series this year. In the 19 for McAnally Hilgeman, Daniel Hemrick, former Xfinity Series champion and Cup veteran. It's been a while since Hemrick was in the Truck Series as a full-timer, but here's to hoping he can get some of his momentum back racing for a championship caliber team in the 19. The Rayom Brothers 22 is Jason White, the Canadian racer. They bring in on a part-time basis. Dawson Sutton goes to the 26 for Rackley War. That's a full-time entry this season. FDNY Racing for Brian Doza. Frankie Muniz, Malcolm in the middle in the 33 for Rayom Brothers. Frankie Muniz will compete for Rookie of the Year as well. Lane Riggs, same team, different truck number. He'll be racing the 34 entry for Front Row Motorsports, while Chandler Smith comes back to the Truck Series to race the 38. Both of them, I think, could be playoff, if not championship contenders for Front Row this season. The 44 we talked about with Bailey Curry and Nice Motorsports. That's a late change. Caden Honeycutt goes full-time in the 45 for Nice Motorsports. Stuart Friesen, he's officially confirmed with the 52. You have Timmy Hill in the 56. Johnny Sauter running the Thor Sport 66 this weekend. That's that was an announcement made earlier this week. That 66 is probably going to be split with several drivers. I would not expect Connor Jones to be among those drivers in the mix. Jones, it appears, has been released by Thor Sport Racing heading into this year. Parker Kligerman is going to run multiple races in the 75 for Henderson Motorsports. That's a part-time entry for Kligerman. 77 with Spire, Andres Perez de Lara, the ARCA champion from last year, will compete for Rookie of the Year in the 77. Same thing for Connor Mozak in his new ride for McAnally Hilgeman in the renumbered 81 entry for Connor Mozak. You have Matt Crafton in the 88. Justin Carroll and TC Motorsports attempting this race in the 90. Jack Wood goes to full-time for McAnally Hilgeman in the 91 this season. You have Clay Greenfield on a part-time schedule with GK Racing in the 95. And then the other Thor Sport entries, Ty Majeski and Ben Rhodes, officially confirmed in those two trucks. So I threw a lot at you, but there are 38 entries to choose from. And evidently I have to pick first now.
Yes.
Oh boy.
You got first pick.
Well, let me think here. 2024. Last year, Nick Sanchez won this race. The year before that, it was, heck, I don't even remember.
It's always a wild card with Daytona. That's the thing.
Right.
It was Zane Smith 2 years in a row before that.
Was it really? Interesting.
Oh.
Okay. Now I got to really think about this. I'm going to go with, let's go with someone who has won at Daytona before. I'm going to pick Grant Enfinger.
Ooh,
to take
okay.
CR7 Motorsports to victory lane to start the season here at Daytona.
All right. That is not a bad pick. That is not a bad pick at all. And for me, this is tough because, again, Daytona is such a wild card. You don't know what's going to happen. And you know this race is unpredictable as they come. However, I think I'm going to go ahead and stick with one of my A10. I'm going to stick to my guns early, at least for now. I'm going to go with a guy who I think is going to be a little questionable to get in without winning a race. But I think he's going to get one in this year. And I'm going to say we lock it up early. Tyler Ankrum gets it done.
Okay. I've got a wheel. I don't have any logistical reason for anything. I've got a wheel.
The wheel!
I'm going to spin it. Will Smith is in the middle of it. Now you can imagine it in your head. It's spinning. Come on. This should be good. Can't tell which one got it. All right, Ben Rhodes is going to win this.
Okay.
I want to argue for it, but the wheel spoke, and that's all I can tell you.
Did you actually, did you even have Ben Rhodes making it into your playoffs?
The wheel doesn't determine the playoffs, unfortunately.
I did consider Ben Rhodes. I'm not gonna lie. I did consider Ben Rhodes.
Did I put him in the playoffs is actually a really good question.
Let me check here because I had to pull up mine to figure it out, so I might as well pull up yours. For Ben Rhodes, you had him as the 9th driver.
Let's go.
So
the wheel has spoken.
The wheel has indeed spoken. And it's sticking with your current predictions, which were not based on the wheel.
It knows. It just knows.
I guess it does. It won you a championship last year, but
yeah, it did.
We'll see you go against it one time and you end up having to pick last.
That's McDowell was a wheel pick.
Was it? So
yeah.
You die.
Yeah.
So that's the case. You die.
McDowell was, but the Clash pick was not.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yep. All right. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next race. We'll decide, which is the Xfinity Series race for Saturday, the United Rentals 300 at Daytona. There are 41 entries on this list that I can see here. And again, I'll share the screen just to take you through the changes heading into this year, because there are quite a few. Sheldon Creed in a new ride. He'll drive for Haas Factory Team in the 00. You also have Carson Kvapil, Rookie of the Year contender for Junior Motorsports. He goes full-time in the 1 this season. Parker Retzlaff goes from Jordan Anderson Racing to Alpha Prime in their new number 4 entry. Chris Wright driving for Our Motorsports, another Rookie of the Year contender in the 5. You have defending champ Justin Allgaier in the 7, Sammy Smith in the new look number 8, Daniel Dye driving the 10 for Colleague Racing. That car goes full-time. It basically replaces the 97 from SVG last year. Dye will compete for Rookie of the Year for Colleague Racing. Garrett Smithley, his new full-time ride for SS Greenlight in the 14. Christian Eckes moves up to the Xfinity Series. Will drive the number 16 for Colleague Racing in his Rookie of the Year campaign. Another rookie this season. William Sawalich, last year's ARCA East champion, will drive the 18 for Joe Gibbs Racing. The number 19 will be the All-Star car for JGR. And this week, Justin Bonsignor will drive at quite possibly the biggest track he's ever driven on in his career. The modified veteran gets a chance in the number 19 for JGR. Brandon Jones comes back to Joe Gibbs after 2 years away, driving at Junior Motorsports to little to no success. But Brandon Jones back in the 20, trying to rebound with his career. Ryan Truex in the 24 for Sam Hunt Racing. We talked about it briefly. Harrison Burton comes back to the Xfinity Series. He'll race for AM Racing in the number 25 Ford Mustang. 25, of course, was the 15 last year. Dean Thompson, Rookie of the Year contender in the 26 for Sam Hunt Racing. RSS, Kyle Sieg, back to his normal number 28. The number 29 for RSS will be part-time this season. JJ Yaley will take the reins this weekend at Daytona. Blaine Perkins is the new driver for the 31 for Jordan Anderson Racing. Perkins was in the 29 RSS car last season. New ride for Perkins in the 31 for JAR. Jordan Anderson in the 32 for his own team this weekend. Anderson will field that car for a few races this year. Austin Green will run a good chunk of the schedule this year. Greg Van Alst will run most of the schedule in the 35 for Joey Gase Motorsports. Ryan Sieg back in the 39. Sam Mayer, his new ride for Haas Factory Team in the 41. This was the 98 car that Riley Herbst ran last season. Mayer in a new ride comes over from Junior Motorsports. Anthony Alfredo also moves over from Our Motorsports to drive for Young's Motorsports in the 42, replacing Leland Honeyman in this car. Cesar Baccarella will drive the 45 for this weekend in Alpha Prime. Nick Sanchez, Truck Series veteran from the last couple of years, moves up to the Xfinity ranks and reunites with Big Machine Racing to drive the 48 full-time, replacing the semi-retired Parker Kligerman in the 48. Joey Gase fielding the 53 for his own team. He'll run that car for a few races throughout the year. Taylor Gray, rookie for Joe Gibbs in the new 54 entry. Gray will drive that 54 car for the full season. A new team, Cope Family Racing in the 70, will field Leland Honeyman as one of their drivers for this season. It's one car, but it'll be split between two drivers. Honeyman will race at Daytona. We'll also have Thomas Annunziata running about half the schedule in this 70. Ryan Ellis in the new number 71 for DGM Racing, which I should have mentioned. DGM Racing is entering a partnership with Jesse Iwuji Motorsports, which is why you see on the entry list DGM Racing and JIM. That stands for Jesse Iwuji Motorsports. But Ellis in the new number 71 for that team. Carson Ware will race the 74 for Mike Harmon this weekend. Connor Zilic, full-time in that 88 for Junior Motorsports. One of the most highly touted prospects in a long time. Zilic will compete for Rookie of the Year. And honestly, he may be competing for more than Rookie of the Year if we're being completely frank. Josh Bilicki will run most of the year in the 91 for DGM. The 92 for DGM will be a part-time entry. CJ McLaughlin is running this car for Daytona. He'll probably run it for a few other races. And then you see the 99 for Viking Motorsports. That is their new entry after they split off from RSS Racing to form their own operation, their own team, really. Matt DiBenedetto stays with Viking in this new venture. So those are the notables for the Xfinity Series race. You have 41 entries for Saturday. 3 cars will go home. And again, I have to pick first here.
Yep, you do.
Well, it's a good thing I get to pick first because, for one, we're going to a super speedway, and I look through the entry list, and I still see there's one driver who I know picking on a super speedway is like a cheat code because they've won here the last, 3 years running?
Very much.
Yeah, it's I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3. Okay, Austin Hill.
Yeah, I knew I had to get second or higher just for this because I knew Austin Hill was going to be off the board, but I'm going with a strong undercut. I'm going with his teammate Jesse Love to get it done.
Yeah, well, you just took two names off my wheel, so I'm a little bit upset about that. Thanks, guys.
I
The
mean, no different.
wheel.
We're gonna pick out. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I might have had to override the wheel if it said not Austin Hill. I'm not gonna lie to you. Um, yeah, just to spin it. I have all of the numbers on here. Someone might not qualify and get picked. I'm willing to take that risk. Who in the world? Okay, let me go back to the entry list again. Jordan Anderson.
Uh-oh.
The wheel spoke. I can't deny it. It's Daytona.
I mean,
We've had a
he
close
almost
call.
won here before in a
I
truck
know.
race a few years ago. So I guess.
It's not a bad pick.
It was that or Blaine Perkins, so I'm not really upset on the one or the other on that one. I would have taken Jordan Anderson over him, but sometimes I wonder about this wheel if it knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, that just leaves us with the picks for the duels. And right now we are halfway through. Josh Berry is on provisional pole, Hamlin second, Dillon third, Belt fourth, and Larson fifth. That is the current lineup of guys. We'll see how the final five go. But gentlemen, I believe I've made the calculations for the rest of the grid. I'm just warning you right now, there are already 12 Chevys in the first duel. If I've done my math correctly, there are 12 Chevys in the first duel.
We got a speedster on the track right now.
Ty Dillon?
Yes, yes. Josh Berry is currently fastest of this
Yes.
second round, by the way.
Yeah, by over a tenth of a second or nearly a tenth of a second. And Ty Dillon's run is going to send him fifth. Not a good follow-up performance. It's a 49.466 point at 1,000th of a second short of Christopher Bell for that spot. But
and ahead of Kyle Larson.
yes, ahead of Kyle Larson, but not by much either.
That's Josh Berry might be on the front row.
Josh Berry very much might be on the front row.
I mean, we've had, just looking at her, and I'm watching through the virtual media center of NASCAR's website here. 6 cars have taken time. Josh Berry is going to be at least in the top 4 for fastest qualifiers.
Top 5.
Top 5 for sure.
Yes.
I mean, you've got Joey Logano, Austin Cindric, Chase Briscoe, Ryan Preece still to set times.
So Ford's going to be sitting on the front row of the Daytona 500 this year.
Uh-oh.
It sure looks like it, yeah.
Here goes Joey.
Time says for Joey. He's looking decent. Top of the board, Joey Logano, 49.358.
Someone check his
get
gloves.
on that. Yep, get on it.
So, Joey Logano is now on the front row for the Daytona 500. That might be back to back for Joey Logano if he were able to pull it off.
I hate to say it, I was really rooting for Josh Berry to hold on to that.
So it is now official. We will have a Ford on the front row of the Daytona 500 this year. Pending, of course, they survive all the practices and duels, but yeah. I don't think Joey Logano is going to be any of the Fords that go on the front row are going to be going too crazy.
No, especially with the dual races, they'll probably just hang back unless the points they get from the duel really means that much.
And I should also, by the numbers count, there are only 2 Toyotas in the first duel. That would be Riley Herbst and Bubba Wallace as the 2 Toyotas. A lot of Fords will join the group because of the qualifying, of course, but at the not a lot of Chevys in the second group. It's only right now Alex Bowman, Byron, and Shane Van Gisbergen pretty much on an island of his own, and then Alfredo Stenhouse and BJ McLeod.
Cindric's looking pretty good. Oh, Cindric just went to the top.
Yep, 49.325. So It is the Penske and Penske E Company sitting on the front row right now with one Toyota looking to snatch in, or else it's going to be a front row lockout for the Fords once again.
Everything's coming up Penske, it seems.
A little bit.
They took the mantle
the
this year.
IndyCar stuff and with their championships and success last season, and now you've got how they started the year in Daytona with the Rolex 24, and now this looking awfully strong.
Well, 2 cars left. Ryan Preece is currently going to be the one on track next. So Chase Briscoe was the fastest. My question is, why would all the other Hamlin was 4, is currently 4th, I guess, but and it's going to be very interesting to see what it is. Also, we got to keep in mind, the last time a driver won this race from the pole, want to take a guess?
Trying to remember. Feels like it's been a long time.
Dale Jarrett.
2000?
Yeah. As Ryan Preece goes second fastest, so they'll split up the Ford brigade, and that just leaves Chase Briscoe as the last driver to qualify.
So we know Austin Cindric will at least be on the front row.
Yes.
So it's going to come down to Cindric or Briscoe to win this pole. And for Ryan Preece, a spot on the front row hangs in the balance depending on how Chase Briscoe performs with this one lap to get it done. And I know my feed's a little bit behind yours, but Briscoe's looking pretty stout so far.
Well, it's not behind on my feed, but I do have the data up survey. It says it's loading and loading and loading. 49.249 Chase Briscoe transferring to Joe Gibbs Racing in his first start for the organization is going to be on pole for the Daytona 500. The 19 is on the front row. So Austin Cindric will join them there. He will lead duel number 2 tomorrow night. Preece third Logano will join the outside row of duel number 2. It'll followed by Josh Berry, Denny Hamlin, Austin Dillon, and Christopher Bell, Ty Dillon, and Kyle Larson. So, with that being said, the Toyotas will only have 3 of their drivers in the first duel. I don't think Bubba Wallace and Riley Herbst are going to have a good time tomorrow night. 2 more Fords will join that group, and 2 Chevy Dillon brothers. It will be 14 of the Chevy entries in duel number 1. Duel number 2 is looking a lot more diverse. It looks like it's going to be Ford heavy with their lineup, because there are only 6 Chevys in the group open race number 2. So, gentlemen, you are going to have to take that into consideration with your picks here. Looking like Chevy's going to have a big advantage in duel number 1. Duel number 2, edge goes to Ford or Toyota. Take your pick on which.
Okay. I gotta head back to the picks I had here. Okay, so I have 2 lines made for the duel races. One is for duel 1, the other is for duel 2.
And I'll go ahead and share my screen here to help you out, because we don't know the official lineup yet. That has not been there, but logic and reason and deducting, we know the top 10 for sure. I would say this list was pretty secure all the way down to 22nd. It may get a little hairy behind that, but everything else is good just because of the open drivers. And again, Martin Truex Jr., he is locked into the Daytona 500, and I'm trying to figure out where he is. Oh, wait, did I screw this? I did screw it. Oh, there we go. That's why. He flipped the wrong guy in. And
Truex is showing 22nd fastest overall for me through round 1.
Right, but he's got to be in duel number 1 because he was the fastest of the first of the open drivers. Remember, The open
Wow.
drivers have to get split evenly.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah.
Truex, Johnson, they are locked into the Daytona 500. So, might as well put that in the green. And you have Justin Allgaier, who will be in duel number 2 or no, duel number 1 as the third driver. He will be in yellow and in orange because it's a long shot, but there's still a chance Corey LaJoie could get on speed. And you also, I guess we have a blue for Helio Castroneves for provisional, but Anthony Alfredo. Oh, Anthony Alfredo, Chandler Smith, JJ Yaley, and BJ McLeod. Those are all drivers that are going to have to race their way in on tomorrow night. They do not have a guaranteed spot into the field. Helio Castroneves does through a provisional, but for the purposes of money and everything that goes along with it, he would like to race his way in. And keep in mind, Helio's got some friends because Ross Chastain is starting right there, and you also got Daniel Suarez with him. So 3 of the Trackhouse cars looking like they're going to be in duel number 1. Does that change any of your perceptions here, Sterling?
I mean, I think Trackhouse will probably finish pretty high up. I think even though Castroneves is guaranteed a spot through the OEP, I think Trackhouse will want to help Castroneves finish as high up as possible. Whether that means everybody rally behind Castroneves and push him up to the lead. I mean, you've got just looking. I mean, you got 2 teammates helping you out there. So if you're Shane Van Gisbergen, tough luck, but you're in the duel that doesn't feature your teammates.
Yeah.
Regarding who I think will win the duel, I think it's going to be a Chevy. I mean, it's very Chevy heavy from what I can see here. Regarding who I think wins the duel itself, I will go with. I'm going to go with an. Maybe this is considered out of the box pick now, but I'm going to say Kyle Busch takes the first duel.
Okay. That is not a bad pick because he's also got the friends in the 3, the 10, and as well to go along with that. So that would not be a bad pick. And I'm also thinking Chevy here too, but I'm going to say a little bit of an outside the box pick, but this one makes sense. And he's also got the 16. Yeah, so colleague RCR combo is going to be dangerous. That's tempting. It's very tempting. But I'm going to go with a pure skill on plate racing. And who's a pure plate skill driver? Former Ford, Michael McDowell. So I'll swap over, or it's a house pick for the poll for the first duel.
All right. I think I had plate racer, and I had somebody else in mind when you said that. Believe it or not, I think you can tell who it is. All right, Wheel, what do you got? Don't do another silly one like you did last time. Guys with friends, Ross Chastain gets it done.
Okay. And then for duel number 1, who do we want to say is the fastest here? Or are we gonna award a point for this?
I'm sorry, you said Ross Chastain?
Yes.
All right. And Justin, that last thing you said?
Are we gonna go no points, Aints, or award a point for who gets in open wise?
I don't know. I still don't know. I know we did last year, I think.
Yeah. We could do it we could do it without a point. I just want to hear who you guys have coming through with this.
I'm comfortable with just saying like who we think will make it in.
Okay. I just gotta write down.
Yeah. From the duels, let's see. Truex and Johnson are already locked in.
Yep.
For the first duel, who gets in out of this group? Let's see.
You got Allgaier, Castro Neves, you have Chandler Smith, and you have JJ Yearly.
I think the fact that, Allgaier's closest allegiance is going to be with Chase Elliott, but he's got no other Hendrick teammates because all the other Hendrick guys are in the second duel.
Yeah.
So the burden's going to really fall on Chase Elliott to push the 40 up there. The 66 and the 44, sorry, they just I don't see it happening for them. It's really going to come down to the 40 and the 91. And depending on the other Chevys with Colleague and Childress, who are they going to help?
That's a big question. You would
Inspire too, with the 71. Or well, no, all three Spire cars are in this duel.
Yeah.
In the first duel. So who do they align with? Boy, it's going to be tough.
Hendrick, because of the Raja Karuf connection, you would think Hendrick would be their backer. So
possibly
Allgaier might have a little more help than you think.
I'm gonna say I'll say Allgaier will get in through the duels. Castro Neves will fall back on the OEP to get in.
All right. So you are going with the 40. I am going to. I don't want to be agreeing with you for the sake of agreeing with you, but I also do feel like I think Allgaier is going to find his way in. I think Allgaier's got some more friends than what we're thinking.
I'm also just going to go Allgaier. I'm looking at the 777 right next to him to start the race. That's honestly a good starting spot to be in. And that start's going to be really important considering how far back everybody else is.
So we got the graphic curse going on here, or with this one.
Yeah, it's going to be the graphic curse. I will also say Elio's a little far away from his friends is going to be the problem. He's at the one next to him, but Suarez is a little bit ahead, and that's going to kind of be a disadvantage.
And again, kind of the back, we should clarify, this is not official by any means. We're waiting for the results of it, but we were able to deduce what the lineup would more than likely be based on where the open drivers are, as well as where everybody finished on speed. Now for duel number 2, Sterling, you got a lot more Fords, Ayrton, you got a lot more Toyotas in there. Toyota's looking good, especially after winning their first ever pole at the Daytona 500.
Yeah, Toyota is looking good. I mean, at the same time, though, I mean, Jimmy's already cemented his spot. So
but all three of the legacy cars are in this race.
That's true. They may, because I think it'll
got all three of the 4 or Joe Gibbs cars in this as well. Reddick's kind of a lone wolf in terms of 2311 representation, but the Fords also got a lineup. I'm not gonna lie, this is the part right here that scares me the most. Look at that, and okay. Oh boy.
Okay, for the duel, for who actually wins the duel. Man, this is tough. To win the duel, I'm gonna take Chris Buescher to win the duel.
Okay.
And then I might just wait to hear what y'all have to say for winning the duel before I give my open entry predictions for this one.
So you're going with Chris Buescher. I'm going to go with his teammate. I'm going Brad Keselowski. I look at that 34 through 12 group, and I just know just absolute monsters when it comes to these plate tracks. These guys are going to be forces to reckon with. So the back is a little bit mixed up, but so long as we're not picking in the bottom 10th on back, I think we're fine.
Well, it's going to be a little harder on Elio now. It looks like Suarez and Van Gisbergen are going to be in the second duel.
They are, yeah. I just realized that. Might not be a bad thing. And again, this was unofficial, so I'm not going to complain too much about it.
All right. Give me 1 second and smack out 2 of these cars so I can spin this wheel. All right. Wheels spinning. Please land on an official car. That's him. All right, not him, not Austin Cindric. He's not going to win the duel. He's already on the front row.
He
He's not
might.
going to.
There's a stage point on the line.
If I were him, I would park that thing. Overridden. Try it again, Wheel. We're taking him off the list. All right, that's more like it. Pick one. One. Okay, it is going to be Christopher Bell who wins this duel.
Okay, not a bad pick. He has done well at the plate tracks as of late, so that will be good. And I believe all of our picks are official. Oh, they are in their respective duels, I believe. Hey, free swap for anybody who does it if it's completely wrong. But again, we were trying to figure this out while we were live on air, because again, open drivers have to be selected into the 5 and 4, or it's not based on where they actually, finish in the qualifying result, because you can have 7 drivers in one duel in that circumstance. But
exactly. Okay, so just to clarify, the one change that we have is Castroneves got moved from one duel to the other, or
it was Suarez got moved from the first duel to the second.
There was a couple of changes in the back. There were a couple of changes from from Truex on back because of the way the open rule works. So that will be something to keep in mind. But the open drivers are in their respective duels. Again, listing them off: Truex, Allgaier, Castroneves, as Smith, and Yaley. They are the ones in the first duel. Johnson, LaJoy, Alfredo, and the 78 of BJ McLeod is in the second duel. And gentlemen, we also need to make some picks for who we think is coming out of duel 2.
Well, all right. Well, we've already kind of made our winning picks for the second duel. Regarding the open entries, let's see. Johnson's already guaranteed. You have LaJoy, you have Alfredo, you have BJ McLeod. I think that's it for the open entries in the second duel.
LaJoy, Alfredo, BJ McLeod. That is your options. So picking Allgaier or to get in and via the third spot gets a little tougher with that. That's the problem with it. One of these 3 have to get in.
Yeah. The thing I wonder is, are the Toyotas like, I know Jimmy Johnson's already guaranteed a spot in there, but do the Toyotas help him get a better spot? Because if they do, and he finishes high up, it falls back to qualifying results, and Corey LaJoy was the 4th fastest. So that would put LaJoy into the field. But with the Chevys involved, because you've got 300 guys, and again, they're not as closely tied to Beard Motorsports as, say, Richard Childress Racing, but does Chevy say to Hendrick, hey, we've got a Chevy at the back that we know tends to be pretty fast at these super speedways. Let's get Anthony Alfredo in the show.
Well, and this is where the numbers game starts to play. The numbers game that we talked about all throughout Speed Weeks is coming into fruition now, because as Toyota has locked themselves up, they've got their numbers that they were looking for. Or they got everybody that they were trying to get into the 500. They're good, which means the rest of them are on the ropes. And the problem and I'm not mistaken here, I'm hoping I'm right. If I'm not mistaken, Colleague and all the RCR cars are in Duel 1. Colleague and all the RCR cars are, if that's the case, there is literally no help for Alfredo in that circumstance, because Hendricks are different than RCR cars. And that's a huge thing that we have to consider. Whereas Corey LaJoy, Rick Ware really doesn't have an alliance with anybody, but the Fords will at least be able to help them out.
Right. What else do I think about when deciding this? I mean, the dual races, they're races for a reason.
Right.
What if a crash happens and one of the open entries gets caught up in it?
I'm willing to bet that it's going to be Alfredo.
I worry that could happen. And at the same time, I look at the qualifying speed from BJ McLeod. Sure, he's near the back, but we saw how that car raced in the duels last year.
Yeah, not
Almost made it in.
right.
So, it's tough, but I'm gonna say,
And just to confirm, all the RCR and RCR affiliated, which is colleague cars, are in duel number 1. That is official.
Yeah, and Anthony Alfredo's in duel 2, so
yeah,
he's got that working against him. But I'm gonna be bold. I'm gonna say Anthony Alfredo finds a way to make it in.
You're going with Alfredo?
Yeah, I think he'll be the highest finisher, and I'm afraid for Corey LaJoie that he'll be out.
I'm gonna be bold as well. I'm gonna say BJ McLeod.
Oh, all right.
He almost raced his way in last year, and if there's any driver who's back against the wall, can do it with the car he's had, I think it's going to be a much different car or in race trim than it is going to be in qualifying trim. I think BJ McLeod will not only find his way to the front end or like get in, but I think he's going to be towards the front near the end. I think he's going to be mixing up with those Fords and Toyotas.
This graphic's going to be really fun because I'm going to disagree with both of you. I'm going Corey LaJoie. I'm looking at the projected lineup on NASCAR.com because I don't know where else to look at this point. It's so quick after the qualifying session that we don't really have anything else up other than a projection, it says. But both Rick Ware cars are in this race. They put Cody Ware with Corey LaJoie. Corey LaJoie clearly has the better Rick Ware car, and I think that's by design. They literally said Cody's going to make it no matter what. No reason to give him the better car here. We just want to get 2 in there. Half of this race, 9 of the 22, almost half, they're Fords. They're going to be the big pack. And do I think Cody Ware can keep up with him after what I saw in qualifying? No, I don't. Do I think Corey LaJoie can? I do. His car actually looked like it was maintaining speed. So I think Corey LaJoie can get it done.
I think if the move is going to come, it's going to come from Alfredo, and it's going to come, or it's going to come from LaJoie. I think those two are going to be racing tooth and nail, and I think also we got to keep in mind Johnson is going to be helping out his teammates. It's because Jones and John Hunter Nemechek are going to be in this race, so Toyotas together strong is going to be very much the mantra. Gentlemen, we have set up a very, and I mean very interesting duels because race number 1, we may be wrong on our numbers a little bit, but it is majority Chevy that's going to be towards that front of the pack. Duel number 2, majority Toyotas and Fords. This is setting up to be a very, very fun and entertaining duel, gentlemen. And we're not done. And yet, in terms of this week, we'll have plenty of time to break it all down later on in the week. Next Saturday, or this Saturday, we're going live again because we got to recap the Truck Series. We got to recap duel number 1. We got to recap duel number 2. We got to recap the Xfinity Series that will be happening right before we go live on air. And we got to preview the 36 drivers who are running full-time: Martin Truex Jr., Jimmy Johnson, Elliott Castroneves, and the 2 more names that will be added to the grid tomorrow night as we preview both the Daytona 500 and who we think is going to be the champion in 2025.
It's going to be a fun show. Looking forward to it. This is an exciting time of the year, gentlemen. NASCAR is back, and we're ready to kick it off. We've already kicked it off with 500 qualifying tonight. Congrats to Chase Briscoe and Austin Cindric for qualifying on the front row of the Great American Race. And we'll be back Saturday to talk about everything that's happened in between. There's going to be a lot going on, but looking forward to it all the way.
37 of the next 38 weeks, gentlemen. We've got a cup up race. The wheel is going, and gentlemen, this is our first of 2 a week shows. Starting next week, we're back to normal programming, folks. Monday, Wednesday, a recap on Monday, news on Wednesday. We're gonna be here. We're on the grind, gentlemen. We are officially back in business. We are at full speed, and we ain't stopping till the checker flag hits in Abu Dhabi.
Oh, my. Oh, it's going to be fun. Buckle up, everybody, because the ride's about to get started. It'll be a good one. At least we hope it will be. But that's going to do it for us tonight on this edition of the Burn and Rubber Racing Podcast. Please take care of yourselves and each other and be kind to one another, and also be kind to yourself out there. On behalf of my co-hosts Hal Leestep and Justin Palmer, we'll see you Saturday for the next edition of the Burn and Rubber Racing Podcast. Until next time, this is Sterling Price signing off.